Hey, before we get going, we are partnering today with Patagonia Workwear to encourage more thoughtful holiday purchases this weekend. Give something nice this winter from Patagonia. Not only does a bit of that purchase go back to us to do this work, but they also donate 1% to conservation. Thanks, and enjoy the show. Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Friday, November 29th, 2024. Today, we are doing the Feedback Friday thing. We get a question about growing ginger, and we will hear one more time from our buddy Dan Brisebois, who will join the show to guide us in how to incorporate seeds into a market garden production context. So let's do it. Gosh, all right. Well, happy first day of Turkey Sandwich Weekend, everyone. I will be eating almost exclusively turkey sandwiches for the next few days, and it will be glorious. I will add cranberry sauce. I will probably also throw some crispy chili oil in the mix as well because, little known fact, I know how to put my hair down from time to time. Yesterday, I cooked for most of the day, ate and watched soccer, and played with a baby. I hope you all had an equally restful and awesome day, unless you're not in the U.S. and you probably just had a Thursday, which is cool too. Anyway, it is now Friday, and today we will do the Feedback Friday thing where I look at some of the topics and conversations that sprang up from our shows this week. This week was Seed Week. We discussed how to make money growing seeds and what seeds that we save on our farm on Monday. We talked about nonprofits and which seeds you can save based on your region on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, we discussed farm loneliness and seed breeding. Then we took Thursday off to get ready for Turkey Sandwich Weekend. And then here we are today on Friday for feedback. On Monday, I mentioned that my field peas were flopping into the pathways and going to die there like a bunch of dweebs. And Miroir Dosange, sure if I said that right, asked a good question of, quote, how about a combo of rye and peas as a cover crop? Gives the peas something to grow on, end quote. Yeah, great question. The goal with the peas for us is to winter kill, and rye won't winter kill here, so that's why I don't include that one. A lot of folks use oats with their peas, but especially with our warmer winters, I've found they just don't reliably winter kill for us here. So I would have to plant the oats even earlier to get them to a killable stage. And even then, it's a bit of a risk. I could maybe try something like sunflowers, which are surprisingly hardy in the fall here, but it's not the worst idea to think about what I could start adding to our peas that will reliably die in the winter and also hold them up. There were also a lot of comments about hybrids and seed patents, which deserve more analysis than just a one-off comment from me. So we'll save that discussion for its own segment another time. On the conversation of nonprofit farms, which we discussed on Tuesday, at Todd Berger 4648 writes, quote, my wife and I are blessed to be able to run an organic farm in northern Michigan. Our farm is not nonprofit. Every year we donate between 12,000 and 15,000 pounds of fresh veggies to our local food pantries free of charge. Of course, the food pantries and their underserved patrons love the free, top-quality organic produce. On the other hand, I have heard some grumblings about the food pantries not having the need to purchase leftover and surplus food from local market farmers. I can understand the benefit for local market farmers of having some means to recoup their costs of leftover and surplus produce. And they write, oh well, I think it is very rare to be able to create a venture that is an absolute win for everybody. So like most things, nonprofits and giving away food for free has probably both good and not so good aspects, depending upon who you are in that picture. End quote. Yeah, I mean, not a lot to add to that, and I think it's a good point. Also, farmers should know that you can write off donations to food banks. I know that's not the same as cash, but if a food bank or something similar stops supporting you financially for whatever reason, hopefully the tax break helps, and also obviously contributing to your community is a nice thing to do. So hopefully those continue to inspire you to do those things. Food insecurity is in every community in our country, and although it is not fair to ask farmers who already do not make significant money to donate some of what they grow, there is arguably no greater demonstration of true wealth than feeding someone else. Take pride in that, and when it makes sense, give. Wednesday, I talked about farmer loneliness, and I really think there are some great comments in there. This one from @RedSuperSigma2899 stood out. They wrote, quote, "Stay strong and positive, my friend. Very few things are within our control, so focus on those. I've followed you long enough to see you're battling with things. For what it's worth, you have changed my life and give me great hope. Stay blessed." End quote. That's very sweet, and I'm glad our work has been helpful. But yeah, I've had a lot of battles. Depression in particular, that's one I've suffered heavily from on and off over the years. Intense anxiety, as I've mentioned, is ever present for me, especially in crowds. It's kind of a fun list, you know? And I like sharing some of those things with you because I know for some of you, comparison isn't just the thief of joy. It's the driver of depression. It's the fuel for your anxiety. I found it can be helpful to know you're not alone in these things, so I hope that is helpful to you. Okay, so I also thought I would use this Feedback Friday to tidy up my comments on Mars from last Feedback Friday because they weren't clear to everyone. I will link the episode in the show notes for if you want to go back and listen to it, but I made the case in that episode that we need to stop focusing on and spending so much money on and energy on and resources on travel to Mars and instead direct our attention towards the incredible place that we have all around us that is slowly dying, that is Earth. Now, the clarification comes from the fact that a handful of you thought I was suggesting that the goal with the Mars missions was to entirely abandon Earth for Mars, and you thought that because that was literally the word I used, abandon. Not gonna lie, although I was baffled by some of the responses at first, when I listened back, I realized indeed that was, in retrospect, a poor and imprecise choice of words. That's on me and my editor who doesn't exist. But by abandon, I meant it like to give up on or stop caring about. I wasn't suggesting these Mars missions were about completely abandoning Earth for Mars. To my knowledge, no one has suggested we abandon the Earth entirely. That would be completely bananas. But to be fair to you all, it is not the fault of the critic when something is misunderstood. It's on the criticized for being unclear. And listening back, I can hear how it sounds like that's what I think these companies are trying to do. Obviously, I don't, and I don't think anyone does. Frankly, that would be hilarious and deserved of critical comments. My point is only that the Earth is where our attention needs to be, like right now, or like 20, 30 years ago, but definitely right now. I get the idea of having humanity insurance by setting up colonies on other planets. I get the thrill of space exploration, but beyond being incredibly unrealistic, according to many scientists, saving and maximizing the Earth should take precedence. And the amount of money poured into these programs would honestly do the trick nicely. I mean, the primary obstacle between people who would happily set up and run large functioning ecological farms and having those farms is financing, plain and simple. For me, if we're concerned with the future of humanity, and we're truly concerned with it, the Earth completely falling apart is a potentiality much more acute than a potential asteroid. Fascinatingly, on that point, there are AI programs that are capable of digesting incredible data sets from satellites and telescopes and looking for anomalies that researchers may miss, which will give scientists significantly more warning to develop a deflection strategy for something like an asteroid. One such program is already said to have identified over 27,000 overlooked asteroids in our solar system that scientists can now keep an eye on, among other rocks hurling ominously through space. All that to say, the tech has already advanced in the planetary protection realm 1,000-fold, and we won't get to the point of even needing humanity insurance if we don't focus heavily on the life-covered rock we currently live on. Anyway, as is tradition for Turkey Sandwich Weekend, we must have completely natural segues, so when we come back, let's talk ginger. BRB. Today's episode of Growers Daily is brought to you by Johnny's Selected Seeds. When you need proven varieties you can count on and detailed guidance from seeding to harvest, consider Johnny's your trusted growing partner. Their same-day shipping can help keep your planting schedules on track when the unexpected happens. They're here to help you grow good food. Turning to Johnny's means you can plant high-quality, trial-proven varieties with confidence and know that their expert staff is ready to help with first-hand knowledge, because they've grown them themselves. Learn more at johnnyseeds.com. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener, are enjoying this podcast and completely want to make Farmer Jesse's day, you can do so over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I am honored absolutely every time someone signs up over there. I truly, because I know every single person and thing on earth is asking you for money, and it floors me when you choose to throw a couple bucks at keeping this information free and open and flowing. So from me and the rest of the team at No Till Growers, like, genuinely, thank you. Anyway, I try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to those Patreon questions. Today's question is from Patreon member Rob Hazel, who writes, quote, "Hi, Farmer Jesse." Hi, Rob. I look forward to your show each day. Thank you. My question is about growing ginger in the field. I am in Zone 7B, northeastern Maryland. I do not have covered infrastructure except for hoops and row cover. I do have a 10-foot by 20-foot propagation house, and a concrete floor with thermostatic heat and cooling. Can I successfully grow ginger in the field, or would it be better to grow it in containers in the prop house? I am in my third season growing in a deep compost mulch system with 42-inch beds on a quarter-acre plot. Thanks. End quote. Yeah, excellent question, Rob. Thank you. And I love ginger. I love growing it. I love eating it. I love pickled ginger. I love ginger tea. I love talking about it. It is also one of the coolest crops to grow because it just looks so much different than anything else we produce. Our little taste of the tropics, in our field is the ginger. It looks tropical. It's beautiful. So to answer your question, as long as we're just talking about baby ginger, not cured ginger, you can grow it in that climate in either the field or the tunnel. I know because our climate is actually quite similar to Maryland's, even a little bit cooler because we're in 6B and on the cusp of 7A, and we've grown ginger outside many times. However, in order to get it to a good size, it does require a slightly earlier start for the field because it is just a very long season crop. So for the field, what I would do is get some trays and some peat moss in late January or February, lay the ginger on top of a bed of peat moss, like a few inches deep, or potentially some alternative material, though I have not tried any others beyond peat. Do that in trays and then set the trays on heat mats or somewhere quite warm. When they sprout, they will also need some light, obviously, so make sure you have an option to move them into sunlight or grow lights. Keep in mind these are tropical plants, so they are used to heavy rains but rapidly draining soil. So if you do not have soil that drains well, they can suffer. So make sure to prep your soil accordingly. I also suggest setting up small tunnels in row cover over top of the planting beds for several weeks before transplanting the ginger to allow that soil to heat up a bit more at least than just like ambient soil temperatures. Transplant the sprouted pieces of ginger well after the last chance of frost. And if it's still cool when you transplant, like cool outside, not like cool like sunglasses, but anyway, keep the cover on, like keep a row cover on until it gets warm enough outside to take it off. The recommended spacing that I can find in the literature is roughly 10 inches by 6 inches for the best nutrient uptake and yield. Allow the ginger to grow as long as you possibly can before a frost, and the ginger should do well for you in the field. In the tunnel, if you're using containers, I can't advise based on personal experience. I did find a study that found the best economic results for the yields was when using medium size, so that's 3.9 gallon containers for ginger, but it was still a small experiment. You could start there and try a few different sizes to see what makes the most sense for you. Either way, best of luck, Rob. We will do more on ginger in the future because I am seeing a lot more new scientific literature out there about growing ginger. There's a lot of interest in growing it in non-tropical environments, and so I would like an excuse to dive deeper into that research. I also want to do some trials comparing quote unquote seed ginger with organic ginger roots from the store next year, which costs significantly less, though could come with potential disease issues. So there's a trade-off. Anyway, keep the questions coming, Patreon members. And again, don't be discouraged if I have not yet gotten to your question. I may be looking for someone to answer it, or I'm just researching it, or both. So yeah, I'll get there. Thank you all. Anyway, up next, one more chat with Dan to round out the seed week. BRB. Today's episode of Growers Daily is brought to you by Farmhand. I don't know about you, but I got into farming to be in the field growing food for my community, not creating elaborate pack lists, not writing newsletters or responding to emails, not designing and maintaining web stores, and etc. And I especially don't enjoy doing those things after an already full and fulfilling day of growing food. Actually, if I spent less time on my phone and behind the computer, that would be great. If only there were a solution for that. Enter Farmhand. Farmhand is the only all-in-one virtual assistant built by and for farmers. With one single platform, Farmhand enables you to offload your administrative tasks, send and manage communications, and sell more to your customers. Farmhand saves growers an average of 6 hours of administrative load each week. That's 6 hours so you can get back into the field spend more time with friends or family, or have a life outside of the farm, which is actually a thing, think about it. What would you do with an extra 6 hours a week? Sign up for a free trial with the link in the show notes, because now is the best time to dial in those systems for the next growing season. Follow the farmhand link in the show notes to learn more. All right, back to the show. Okay, so welcome back, Dan. Thanks again for joining me today and all week. This week has been celebrating the release of your new book, The Seed Farmer, available at no-tillgrowers.com, with a series of seed questions. And for today's seed question, I was thinking about how one of the things that I've loved about your work is that you like to fit seeds into a market garden context, and that's a big part of your book. So maybe what are some tips or considerations for people to consider who will already keep a garden or a market garden and want to pursue a seed crop?
Well, what I think is the easiest part to start is start with the varieties you're already using. So that's the first thing. You don't have to go find new varieties. The next thing is to know the difference between open pollinated and hybrid seed. Hybrid seed is usually marked with an F1 in its name, and an open pollinated usually doesn't have anything written with it. But hybrid seed, if you keep the seed from that, it's going to look different than the parents, whereas open pollinated should be true to type. So that's another part of it. And then afterwards, I guess it depends how tough you want your first seed crop to be. So the easiest stuff to grow are the things that are getting to fruit on your farm already. So stuff like tomatoes or peppers or eggplants, if you're already growing them, they're producing the part, especially tomatoes and peppers, like they're producing the part that when it's ripe, those little bits inside, that's the seeds, and it's just about like a pepper. You open up the pepper, you take those seeds out, you dry them, there you are. And so fruiting crops are really, I mean, with peppers, I should also warn that hot peppers and sweet peppers can cross-pollinate. And one of the things I really make a point in the Seed Farmer book is don't worry about cross-pollination when you're getting into seeds, because in almost all cases, it's going to be edible and it's going to be fine. But if you're crossing hot and sweet peppers accidentally, you don't want your clients to wind up with a surprise hot pepper. So if you keep them even 50 or 100 feet apart, your sweets and your hots, they shouldn't cross. But that being aside, so fruiting crops are pretty easy to get to. I would avoid squash at first because it just cross-pollinates so easily. And that's one where so I said in most cases, it doesn't really matter if something crosses up, it'll still be edible, it'll still be tasty. With squash, if you have a zucchini and you have a pumpkin that cross together, sure, they'll be edible, but it's not going to be the best zucchini. It's not going to be the best squash. Mystery squash is not a fun thing. Well, maybe it's a really fun thing to have.
Sure.
It's a hard thing to sell. And so I would steer clear of the squashes at first. So fruiting crops are really good places to start. And then if you grow cut flowers, that's another great place to start, because you can't deadhead every last cut flower on your farm. You already have some, I bet, that are going to seed. So it's just about harvesting them. And again, here, if you have, two zinnias that are close side by side or close enough, they're probably going to cross-pollinate. It'll still be beautiful. If you have a red, I'm not 100% sure about the genes, but if you have, like, let's say a red zinnia and some other color zinnia, most of that red zinnia's seed is probably going to give red zinnia plants. And then there'll be a few that are different. And those different ones can be really exciting. If you love them, then you keep the seed from those. If you don't love them, you eliminate those and you just keep the seed from the others. So cut flowers is a great place to dabble with seeds. And then, so those are the easy ones. What I find really exciting on a market garden is to be able to get a market crop and a seed crop. So let's say you have arugula, you sow your arugula, and then you get a good first cut. Maybe you can get a second cut depending where you are, but you get that first cut and then you let it go to flower, and then it produces seed pods, and then you can harvest the seed off of it. So I think that's a phenomenal combination, and you can get a surprising amount of seeds off of the salad green bed. And like I think there's like on our farm we grow all our own brassica greens for salad mix, and so it's something that's totally feasible. So those are some of the directions. I guess the last one I would point out is if you're growing, let's say, radishes or turnips or even carrots or beets, if you're going to probably harvest a lot of those. And if you choose the best 30, 40 roots or even better 100 roots, and then you overwinter them in your cold room and you plant them out, you get a great seed crop there. And what's fun, kind of going back to a previous conversation about selection, is that if you're choosing the best 100 roots out of 1,000 or 10,000 roots, that's you're choosing a 10% or 1% of the population. You're going to be nudging that population even more in that direction. And I think that's the real power of keeping seed on a market farm, is just that we as market gardeners have more contact with our plants, or a different kind of contact with our plants, than maybe some seed growers who are just growing seed. And so it's just a really great niche to be observing directly and selecting the things that we like to move that variety the way we want it to be.
I love that. I know that one of the main questions that will certainly come up when it comes to something like, I love the baby green example too, like the idea of stacking products, but like, let's say that's in a rotation for you and you cut your arugula, you let it go to seed, you collect the seed. What is the weed management element of this would look like?
So what you're referring to is when you have those seed pods that come up, it's really hard to harvest every last seed. Um, and you're probably going to get a good 90% of it in a good condition, an ideal situation, but you can't get 100%. And so that's going to leave a bunch of seed that's going to shatter and fall to the ground. And if you were to till that under, and the next year you're going to sow or sow, and then you're going to sow carrots after that, it is going to be a nightmare, because you're going to have a quick growing green at the same time. And that's what you want to avoid. So there's a few different options. I mean, one option could be follow a crop, like follow a seed crop with something that's easy to weed, something like a squash or potatoes that are bigger spacing. Another could be follow a seed crop with a cover crop, and that'll give you a chance to flush it out. Something also that I would recommend is, after you have a seed crop, don't incorporate it right away. Leave that seed on the surface, and then when it rains, that seed is going to germinate, and you're going to see that's going to give you a chance to see if it's crossed up or not. You could even harvest it as a salad green if it's not too weedy with like your traditional weeds. But also that seed on the surface, it gets predated on by mice and beetles. And so that reduces it. So leaving it on the surface is pretty good. Or if you're somebody who's kind of in a tarp situation, or you're kind of using compost as a no-till, you could have, like, if you're just putting a layer, well, so if let's say you're using tarps, you could just irrigate that bed and then tarp it, and that's going to just germinate all those seeds. And because they're really on the surface, it's going to be pretty easy to control them. So those are different strategies to do. The one thing is, don't till it under and sow carrots or beets in it right away.
Yeah, indeed. Those are all great tips. Dan, I absolutely love the book. I'm very excited to get it out into the public, and also congratulations, because I think you did a great job.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate these conversations.
Oh, always, Dan. These are some of my favorites. All right, I hope you enjoyed that chat and this episode. You can pick up a copy of Dan's new book, The Seed Farmer, at no-tillgrowers.com, and check out his podcast as well by searching for The Seed Farmer wherever you get podcasts, or following the No-Till Growers Network feed. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can always hit that super thanks button to show some super love if we ever provide something super helpful. That's a lot of supers, but you get the point. Otherwise, I'm going to end it there. Huge shout out to Willie Breeding for the theme music, and to the team at No-Till Growers for their support. Sign up over at patreon.com/no-till-growers to support our work, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or if you just sign up in the month of November or December, I guess any month, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to Greg Muller, Connor McKelvey, Native Biota, and Joe Kane. This is a pretty nerdy list of names here. Here's what I think happened in this story. So this one takes place in like Arkansas, and it's kind of in the woods, like kind of in a marshy woods there in the south of Arkansas. And this is a team of entomologists, clearly, who are out studying some native biology there. And what they uncover is they find a new species of butterfly. And so they start following this new species of butterfly, and they find dozens more, and they just keep following and following, and they realize at one point that they're completely lost in the woods. So anyway, this story actually is kind of a little bit of like Odysseus and Sirens meets Revenge of the Nerds. So it's kind of like a combo of those two stories, and it's called Native Biota. Yep. Maybe it should be called Nerdive Biota. Anyway, thanks for listening and or watching. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.